It's Catherine and Brian at Moonstarlodge in Georgian Bay, Ontario, and I'm a little off kilter, but we're bringing you our Indigenous perspective on all things divination and cartomancy. We're just about to enter the time of the full moon of Wisdom Keeper. That's the second moon cycle of 2024. And I haven't done a VR in a very long time, but I'm doing the hashtag New Year New Tarot 24, and it's a VR to Amy at Strength Reversed, also Liz at West Star Tarot, and Laura at Aquamarine 18. So there, as it nears the end of January, it's kind of important for me to get this in, so I've pulled together the responses I have to the 8 prompts, and I would suggest that you go to Amy or Liz at either Strength Reversed or West Star Tarot to see the prompts written out. So just so you know, before I get into the prompts, I have been collecting tarot since 1974, entered university in the mid-70s, did a degree in psychology, specializing in parapsychology, became a spiritualist minister, which kind of went against the grain as an Indigenous person, but I wanted their training, and went on to do shamanic training for 11 years in my community, or in various communities in Northern Ontario. And so I've had a lifelong love now into 50 years of dealing with tarot, primarily tarot, but some oracles as well. And so we bring in the lunar astrology and all those things that are appropriate to our Indigenous culture. So let me get to the prompts here. The card of the year for 2023, and that prompt is the card that for me sums up the year. I would say my personal card last year was the Hanged Man, and that kind of seems to fit, you know, sacrificing a lot and looking at the world from a different perspective. But in response to this prompt, I'm really thinking that Judgment is the card that I would ascribe to 2023. So for last year, I think Judgment should have been the card that fit. I find that self-responsibility is a big thing, and we are the judges of what is right for us, and a lot of influence, societal influence, government influence for us in the Indigenous community, still colonial issues, racism issues. I feel like Judgment was the card that should have been in play, and whether it got acted upon, who knows, but it's a card I think that would apply to just about any year anyway. So what do I think of the card of the year for 2024? Well, this is supposed to be, depending on what system you follow. If you follow RWS, it's Strength. If you follow other systems, it's Justice in the number 8 position, because it's an 8 year. I think both apply, actually. And I would say in a perfect year, if I could wave my magic wand, I would have the High Priestess at the number 2 position, and Judgment again as the cards to equally impact the concept of what we need to deal with on personal and societal levels in 2024. Prompt number 3, the tarot habit practice I'm leaving behind in 2024. Oh, wow. I have in the past been influenced by other readers I respect and have at times purchased decks. Now, I usually research decks quite extensively and make sure I like the artwork and that sort of thing, and the ethos and the direction of the deck. But a couple of times I found myself influenced by people who I very much respect and just assumed it would be fine, and it didn't turn out to be so fine. The thing that I also need to leave behind is not documenting my daily draws and the spreads I do for whatever reasons, whether it's new moon or full moon or some circumstance. I've always used this kind of an A5 tarot journal. It's subdivided into categories, and I've used this specific one since 2018. And the reason I like it is that when I fill it, I can turn around and offload the filled pages and create kind of a library by year. But I haven't always taken the time to do that. And so I'm leaving behind that lack of attention to the tarot journal. I spend more attention cataloging and making sure my clients have their tarot readings, and I've neglected my own. So that's one thing that I'm leaving behind. Part of the reason I can anticipate successfully that I can do this is that Brian and I are retiring much of what we do as a business. I still plan to see individual clients for spiritual counseling and card readings. I mean, I've done that for 50 years. That's not something that's terribly difficult, but I have a lifelong disease, rheumatoid arthritis, which is degenerative, and congenital atrophy of the optic nerve. So we're well past 65. It's time to step back from leading an indigenous lodge, and we're not giving it up or anything. We're just honing what it is we spend our time on. But my tarot is something that's front and center, so I will have more time for that. Number 4, the tarot practice or habit I'm embracing in 2024. Ooh, that's a big one. I looked at what I did for students in 2023. Now, this is for a tarot class. And I set up this grimoire in this notebook, hoping that students would jot down interesting card meanings that they ran across. They never utilized it, and I was going to utilize it for 2024, and I realized that I don't think that this is a substantial enough book. So I had a couple of art journals, and I want to do a grimoire in 2024. So I've got one for the actual card meanings and one for card spreads. Now, I did an awful lot of work developing a huge database of card meanings across the general types of cards. So I have Thoth meanings, I have Marseille meanings, and I have RWS meanings. But I realized very recently that I am missing the medieval cards, which sort of move between Marseille and Thoth to some degree. I found and am exploring historic decks. I've had a whole catalog of Los Scarabeo decks that cover this time period. But as I add to my database, I realize I'm missing a really important subsection. I have always used this database with my students in my tarot class so that they get the idea that there is a multiplicity of meanings for each card, and I thrive on that. I'm a history nerd, and I want to know where tarot has come from. I read the book by Dr. Cynthia Giles. It was a PhD thesis on the progression of tarot, the history of tarot, and traditional meanings. With, in her mind, if I can be so bold, that 1989 was a watershed year for tarot with Mother Peace and Daughters of the Moon and that sort of thing. That got me working backwards. And so I've looked at all the decks I've accumulated, and I realized I had a gap. So that's my 2024 objective. The practice will be to get into actually filling the grimoire, either with a layout or a card meaning as I come across them. When I'm not, because I'm in a wheelchair, if I'm not in the place where I can do that easily, I've created a bullet journal, which I've put into subcategories, and I can add to it then, and I have been actually doing that. So that's a good habit for 2024. Decks going on hiatus in 2024. I don't want to rile up the haters, but anything Rider-Waite-Smith as an Indigenous person has, and in the traditional Rider-Waite symbology, has always bothered me with misogyny and a lot of heavy churchy Middle Ages kind of iconography. Please understand, I became a spiritualist minister because that's where we talk with ancestors. I'm not anti-church. I just didn't like, personally, the iconography in RWS. So I'm not doing any clones. I'm not doing anything RWS. I have a beautiful collection of them because they're important to the history, but it's not something I'm personally going to use. Part of it is the numerology in RWS swerves and has a little accident. When I look at other more historic decks with other meanings, I find that the RWS meanings are limiting to new students. So I try to encourage them to have an RWS deck because it's contemporary and popular, but that there are other ways of finding out the depth. It's the depth and the breadth of the meanings that's important. So anything RWS is going by the wayside. Decks I'm welcoming, embracing in 2024, and or a wish list of decks. Well, I'm about to get soon the energy archaeology. I've wanted it for years. I finally broke down and ordered it. I'm going to lay out some decks that I have acquired at the end of 2023 and into the beginning of 2024. So maybe Brian, you could flip the camera. So these are decks I've just recently received. How about I turn that one around? The Tarot of the Weird. It's an older deck. This one is the Tarot de los Muertos, and it goes back to 1999, and I happened to find it on, I think, Gamecrafter. Human Spirit Oracle, the Medieval Tarot, which has been around a long time and is still in print. The Mushroom Spirit Oracle, there's also a Mushroom Tarot. The Soul Mirror Oracle, which I just received. You can flip the camera, Brian. I'm looking at the Aztec Angels, which I was expecting to have arrived today, and a few Kickstarters to come in. But basically, if I can focus on this year and really do a deep dive, I will be happy. It's, you know, I have only so much shelf space yet, and I've never done a true purge, but I plan on a true purge. Let me just get this out of the way. If I purge anything in 2024 from my collection, because I have some very old decks that I would never get rid of, it's going to be mostly mass market decks from one particular publishing firm. I'm not going to say the name of it, but I just find a lot of the stuff that is put out there might have worked for me in the past, but it certainly doesn't work for me now, and there are other people who may very well benefit from it. A lot of folks in our community don't have enough income to just keep buying decks, so this is my way of giving back to the community. Decks, other decks that are on my wish list. I guess there aren't any other on my wish list, but I have some Scylla Conway decks, pretty much all of her decks, and I'm going to be doing more of a deep dive into those. I find those intellectually very stimulating. So we're almost done here. Number 7, the biggest tarot takeaway in 2023. This could be a memorable lesson, a fact, a spread, or an understanding. I have come to connect with a number of really special tarot practitioners from around the world. We're not communicating very much, but people who are also using tarot in their clinical practice, and I delight in all the countries represented by these primarily women. And I love that there are some older gentlemen who have a lot of knowledge about tarot who are out there. So I have expanded my connections, and I delight in that. So that's an important support to me. This is one of the reasons I'm doing this VR, is to kind of connect out a little further. Tarot plans for 2024. This is number 8. Goals, resolutions, or focuses in 2024. So I mentioned the grimoires, and I want to teach advanced tarot at one point in 2024. I want to finish my indigenous tarot. I have a 108 card tarot because it has 5 elements, so earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. Denise Redmond is doing the artwork for me for that one, and although I have a textile studio and I'm a textile artist, my stick people would fail in kindergarten. So Denise is doing my artwork, and we've been working on this for 2 or 3 years, and she's quite determined to get all the artwork done this year, hopefully. So that's an indigenous tarot that I've been working on. There aren't very many of them out there, and I'd like to see more. I have an oracle that I've been working on since the year after my child was born in 1999. It's called Spirit of the Teaching Rocks, and it's an oracle based on the pictographs, and I originally had them looking like rune stones, but I've decided to make them in a card format, and that will be hopefully self-published by the end of the year. And I do have a supporter in the wings to help us with that. And the third and final thing is a parapsychology training deck, which has no artwork, so I don't need to embrace anybody, pull them into that sphere. The That's 144 cards, and it's very formal parapsychology training as I received for 7 years in university. So the plethora of ghost hunting, I won't cringe on camera, videos by people who have no training has kind of upset me, and I still watch them, watch how they're using the equipment. But I'd like to see more people have access to the way of right relationship to the categories of spirit beings and that sort of thing, which is part of my culture, but also part of my training. So I have this parapsychology training deck with the 144 cards. So that was very quick. The other thing I didn't mention that I wanted to say, an objective for 2024, maybe you can flip the camera again, Brian, are these 3 books. They're all by the same author. He put this book out a couple years ago, Tarot for Transformation, Using the Major Arcana to Discover Your Best Self and Create a Life Worth Living. The author was Andy Matzner. Now, Andy is now Drea Bloom, and I've got the Tarot for Transformation, Swords and Pentacles, and Cups and Wands will be out, I think, later this year. So that's my reading. Those 3 books are my reading for 2024 and reference. So I hope that answers the questions reasonably, and thanks for hanging in here to the end. If you like the video, you know what to do. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Send me a coffee. I don't have my coffee down here, and my voice is giving out on me, so aho.